गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरा चारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा गिरिधारी राधा गिरिधारी जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेव जय सुभद्रा जय गौरानिताय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रिय अष्टोत्तर श्री ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नाम चल हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा गिरिधारी भगवान की जय श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्र मैया की जय श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga all glories to Srila Prabhupada all glories to Srila Gurudev. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody to this morning session. We will continue to read from Srila Prabhupada Leela Amrita, Srila Prabhupada Leela Amrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Share the screen. Presuming everybody can see. If there's any problem, please let me know.
Yes, Prabhu, you can see that.
Jai. Thank you. Los Angeles, June 26, 1971. When Prabhupada had left Los Angeles a year ago, the political turmoil there had troubled his mind. But on returning, he found the devotees recovered. Faithfully, they were executing his orders to chant publicly, distribute Back to Godhead magazine, and worship the deity of Rukmini Dwarkadish. In the gorgeously decorated Los Angeles temple, Prabhupada performed a large initiation ceremony, accepting dozens of new disciples. On June 27th, Srila Prabhupada traveled from Los Angeles to San Francisco for the 5th annual Rath Yatra. 200 followers met him at the airport. How many devotees do you have? A reporter asked. Unlimited, Prabhupada said. Some admit and some don't admit. Admit you are a servant of Lord Krishna and your life will be a success. After 2 days in San Francisco, Prabhupada returned to Los Angeles and on July 16th flew to Detroit. Bhagavan Das, Prabhupada's governing body secretary for Midwest, had preached vigorously in his zone, opening centers in St. Louis, Chicago, and other cities. Almost 300 devotees, most of whom had never seen Prabhupada, assembled at the Detroit airport to receive him.
Detroit.
Okay, so we'll stop here. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Excuse me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama-shloke Bhagavati Bhaktir Naishtiki Srimad Bhagavatam Puranamamalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam Yasmin Parahamsyam Ekam Mamalam Jnanam Param Giyate Tatra Jnana Viraga Bhakti Sahitam Naishkarmyamavishkritam Tat Shrinvan Supathan Vicharanaparu Bhaktya Vimuchye Naraha Bhaktya Vimuchye Naraha Bhaktya Vimuchye Naraha. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. We continue reading from Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 14. Today's text is 38. So this is also like a prose format verse. एतस्मि संसराध्वनि नाना क्लेशोपसर्ग बाधितापन्न विपन्नो यत्र यस्तम ऊहा वावेतरस्तत्र विसृज्य जातम उपादाय शोचन मुह्यन बिभ्यद विवदन क्रंदन समृष्यन गायन नह्यमाना साधुवर्जितो नैव वर्तते अद्यापि यथा आरब्ध एष नरलोकसार्थो यम अध्वनः पारम उपदिशन्ति. So somebody would like to read the word for word synonyms?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I'll read.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhu, please go.
Etasmin, on this samsara of miserable condition, advani path, nana various, klesha by misery, upasarga by the troubles of material existence, badhita disturbed, apanna sometimes having gained, vipana sometimes having lost, yatra in which, yah who, tam him, you ha vave, or itara someone else, tatra thereupon, visarga giving up, jatam newly born, upadya accepting, sochan lamenting, muyan being illusion, vibhyat fearing, vivadana sometimes exclaiming loudly, karanda sometimes crying, samharshane sometimes being pleased, gayan singing, nahayamane being bound, sadhu rajita being away from saintly persons, na not, eva certainly, avartate achieves, adya api even until now, yata from whom, arabdya commenced, esha this, naraloka of the material world, tar artha the self-interest living entities, yam whom the supreme personality of Godhead, advanaha of the path of material existence, param the other end, upadishanti saintly person indicates. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. And it's a long translation. Somebody would like to read this?
May I, Prabhuji, please?
Yes, please. Yes, ma'am.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
The translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The path of this material world is full of material miseries and various troubles disturb the conditioned souls. Sometimes he loses and sometimes he gains. In other case, the path is full of danger. Sometimes the conditioned soul is separated from his father by death or other circumstances. Leaving him aside, he gradually becomes attached to others, such as his children. In this way, the conditioned soul is sometimes illusioned and afraid. Sometimes he cries loudly out of fear. Sometimes he is happy, maintaining his family. And sometimes he is overjoyed and sings melodiously. In this way, he becomes entangled and forgets his separation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead since time immemorial. Thus, he traverses the dangerous path of material existence, and on this path, he is not at all happy. Those who are self realized simply take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to get out of this dangerous material existence. Without accepting the devotional path, one cannot get out of the clutches of material existence. The conclusion is that no one can be happy in material life. One must take to Krishna consciousness. Thank you. Hare Krishna
Yeah.
Prabhuji. Thank you.
And purport somebody?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
By thoroughly analyzing the materialistic way of life, any sane man can understand that there is not the least happiness in this world. However, due to continuing on the path of danger from time immemorial and not associating with saintly persons, the conditioned soul, under illusion, wants to enjoy this material world. Material energy sometimes gives him a chance at so-called happiness, but the conditioned soul is perpetually being punished by material nature. It is therefore said, দণ্ডজনে রাজা যেন নদীতে চুবায়। চৈতন্য চরিতামৃত মধ্য 20.118. Materialistic life means continuous unhappiness, but sometimes we accept happiness as it appears between the gaps. Sometimes a condemned person is submerged in water and hauled out. Actually, all of this is meant for punishment. But he feels a little comfort when he is taken out of the water. This is the situation with the conditioned soul. All the Shastras therefore advise that one associate with devotees and saintly people. সাধু সঙ্গ সর্বশাস্ত্রে কয় লবমাত্র সাধু সঙ্গে সর্বসিদ্ধি হয় চৈতন্য চরিতামৃত মধ্য 20.54. Even by a little association with devotees, the conditioned soul can get out of this miserable material condition. This Krishna consciousness movement is therefore trying to give everyone a chance to associate with saintly people. Therefore, all the members of this Krishna consciousness society must themselves be perfect sadhus in order to give a chance to fallen conditioned souls. This is the best humanitarian work. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother. Stop share. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this chapter, as we all know, is entitled The Forest of Enjoyment, Material Enjoyment. And this gives all the direct meanings of the story that has been mentioned in the previous chapter, in the conversation between Maharaj Jadabharat and Rahuguna. And this is the last chapter to conclude that whole, the whole pastime of that whole Leela. So, as the name suggests, this is a forest of material enjoyment. The reality is we are all here because we want to enjoy. Every single living entity in this material world, whoever is there, is here because we all want to enjoy. Even after taking to the process of Krishna consciousness, that we all want to enjoy. Anybody here who doesn't want to enjoy? Right? So we are all here to enjoy. And this forest of this material world is meant for us, or is made for us. We are being sent here because we wanted to have the desire to enjoy, right? So now somebody might say, what is the problem? So first, let's look at some of the very important aspects that is being mentioned here. And over the last few verses, various speakers have highlighted individual aspects of this forest of material enjoyment. So today, it is more like a bit of a summary of all that has been mentioned. Of course, there'll be more coming up after this verse, but it is almost like a summary. So it's a bit long, but it summarizes everything. And it tells us what are the conditions that a living entity or a conditioned soul goes through. Okay, so let's look at the verse. Let's see let's do some discovery. Let's find out what is being mentioned here and how we need to remind ourselves that where are we and what are we faced with in this existence of ours. So first, this verse talks about, there are a few things. Like first, this verse talks about samsara adhvam in the first verse, the first line, second word, samsara adhvam, means in this samsara, in the path of material world. So in this samsara, what happens? So these are the qualities. First is, there is klesh. Klesh, as we know, is misery. And of course, misery is further classified into, as we all know, threefold miseries. Adidevik, Adibhautik, Adhyatmik. And then there is upasarga. In Bengali, you say upasarga. This means problems, right? Troubles. So because we are in this material world, right, there is klesh and there is upasarga, means problems, troubles. Now they will keep coming. Whether or not somebody follows rules, regulations, or tries to follow devotional service or not, klesha will keep coming, upasarga will keep coming. There is another one. What is that? Badhita. Baddha hona means, badhita means disturbed. Of course, we are baddha in this material world. And in this material world, being baddha, we are badhita or disturbed. Bhagavatam also in Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 10, so talks about upadritaha, same word, or same meaning rather, is disturbed. So there are three things. One is klesha, one is upasarga, and one is badhita. So we have miseries, we have troubles, and we are always disturbed. Now, people, when we talk about these things and we look at sometimes our own life or lives of other people who we see are very happy, especially when we go on the social media and Facebook and people enjoying, and there's so many photographs of people eating exotic food and going on holiday in exotic locations and very expensive cars, expensive dresses and shopping, and we feel, they are not in this material world. They are in Vaikuntha. We think like that. So even in our lives, sometimes when we get something without expectation, something beyond our expectation, we become exceedingly happy. Right? And sometimes, of course, when problems do come, we become morose or we lament. So there is this, sometimes we are getting something, sometimes we are losing. So that is mentioned in this verse as apanna and vipanna. Yeah, so the last two words of the first line, apanna and vipanna. That is another characteristic of this material world. Now, there are three things. Three things mentioned. One is, as a result of going through miseries, troubles, and being disturbed, what is happening? So these three things, misery, trouble, disturb, is being given to us in this material world. That is something we are constantly facing, experiencing. Because we are experiencing what is happening to us, that is mentioned in the next line. So there are three things: Shochan, Muhyan, and Vibhyat. So if you see Shochan, Muhyan, Vibhyat, that those three words. So what are those three? That is the result or effect of the three problems mentioned. And what are the three effects? Three effects is Shochan, means we are always lamenting. Then Muhyan means we are in illusion. And Vibhyat means we are always in fear. Again, you see, this verse or these three things are not new. In Bhagavatam 177, it is already mentioned. Narad Muni mentions, Yasyam vai shruyamanayam Krishne parama purushe bhaktir utpadyate pumsam shoka moha bhayapaha. So there also shoka, moha, and bhaya. Three things are mentioned. And here also exactly the three things are mentioned. So in different past times, the same philosophy, the same explanation is being given to us on a regular basis, just same thing being repeated through stories. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna sometimes repeats the same information to Arjun as a conclusion to different questions that Arjun raises. In Bhagavatam, all of these pastimes talk about the same philosophy. They talk about the same futility of enjoyment in this material world to lead us to the path of getting out of this material world and engage in the constitutional position of the spirit soul. That is a common thread all across. So here also we see that exactly those three things are highlighted. And then what happens? So we are lamenting, we are in illusion, we are fearful, and so this is something that's going on in our mind, which nobody can see. Okay, so some things are subtle. Only we experience it internally. But externally, also, we manifest those, the reactions. And what are the external manifestation? This verse talks about, in the third line, Krandan. So people cry. Yeah. So this cry is not ecstatic cries. This cry is out of fear, out of lamentation, out of miscommunication, out of misunderstanding. They cry, they feel bad, and they feel helpless. So they cry. And then there are two words, Samrishyan and Gayan. So sometimes when things go well as per expectation and there is some element of happiness that is being experienced, then what happens is we become samrishya, means we become pleased. And when things go as per that and we become pleased, how do we express that? By singing. Sometimes people get very happy and they suddenly they start singing. It often happens, right? I mean, sometimes when we are in the bathroom having a nice shower, we become so happy and blissful that automatically some songs come out. Usually movie songs, they come out that we like or that we have grown up with. That shows that we are very, very relaxed. So it happens. But the reality is, Nahiyamanaha, the last word in the third line, that ultimately we are having these reactions, we are experiencing these things because of two things. One is we are Nahiyamanaha, we are bound in this material world. That is number one. And number two, and most important, this is specifically what this verse highlights and what Prabhupada in the purport also explains, and we'll go through that in a few minutes. So that That other part is sadhu varjitaha. Varjan means to go away, to expel, to leave. Sadhu varjitaha. Why? Because in this material world, we are actually going away from saintly people. Even if saintly people come and interact with us or give us good advice, or we have an opportunity to associate with saintly people, we consciously don't value that and don't take the opportunity to associate with them. And that is the biggest problem. Because of that, we are suffering those three things, and we are having those three types of reactions by being bound in this material world. So these are some of the important points that we can pick up from this this verse. Now, interestingly, there are about 8 points in the translation that Prabhupada mentions when he translates it. It's full of miseries, right? Second, it's full of danger. Third, the soul is separated from his father by death or by other circumstances. That's the 3. 4, he is illusioned and afraid. Because of fear, he cries loudly. 5, sometimes he is overjoyed and he sings, as we just discussed. That's number 6. Number 7, he becomes entangled and forgets his separation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Means he forgets that he's separated. He's separated, but he forgets that he's separated. Then, number 8, at the end of all of that, after all of these things, what is the conclusion? Number 8 and the last one is he is not at all happy. See, he came here in this material world for what? To be what? To be happy. He wanted to enjoy. He wanted to fulfill his desires. And he thought, once I fulfill my desires, I will become happy. But here, what is the conclusion? After going through all of this trouble, all of these tribulations, he realized he is not at all happy. And then the conclusion is, without accepting the path of devotional service, one cannot get out of this forest of material existence. Now, Prabhupada, in the first line in the purport, mentions that by thoroughly analyzing the materialistic way of life, as mentioned in this verse, what should actually happen? What does Prabhupada say? By thoroughly analyzing the materialistic way of life, any sane man can understand that there is not the least happiness in this world. Any sane man will understand there is no happiness. But do we all see that happening? I mean, Prabhupada is talking about any sane man, but today in the society we live in, how many people are sane? How many people are sane? In fact, we talk about it's an insane world full of insane people. It's just a common saying now. So, unless somebody is sane, they will not see the futility of this material world. And because most of the people are not really sane, they are not able to see this futility. They are not able to understand that, hey, this is a forest of material enjoyment, but actually there is no enjoyment. And after all of these problems that I'm going to face or I'm been facing, I will not be able to get any happiness. What I will experience as happiness is just a little bit lessening of problems, which I perceive or I wrongly think as happiness. Now, very few people will come to that conclusion, and that is exactly what we see. So, although we may tell people, oh, this material world is bad and you have problems and this, that, somebody who is not experiencing problems exactly at that moment in their life, do you think they're going to take this seriously? No. For them, life is okay. I mean, yeah, it's got some challenges, some problems, but we are okay. We don't need to listen to all of you and come to temple and do this and do that and so many things that you tell us to do. And you guys, you devotees, your lives are so so restricted. You don't know how to enjoy. There's so restrictions in food, you're restricted, in clothes, you're restricted, your lifestyle is restricted. Every weekend you go to the same place and do the same thing. How boring you guys are. That's the perception people have. Right? They don't even understand the difference between a brahmachari and a sannyasi. This is where we are at. It's the culture, the richness of the culture that we had, which was based on devotional service, with the whole Vedic culture, has become so corrupted and so polluted that people don't even understand that difference. People don't know how to respect. Everything has become completely down the drains. So Prabhupada, in the previous thing, he says that basically today the conditioned soul in this forest of material existence is a Shudra. In fact, he's worse than a Shudra. Shudra also has some principles. But today, people, however opulent or wealthy they may be, they have no principles or very little principles. There's no value. There is no culture. People are just wanting to make money, and because they have somehow been able to make money, which other speakers have mentioned in the last few days, is if they are not able to make money in an easy way, or they are not able to make enough money to fulfill their desires, they will resort to any form of cheating, any form of way to make more and more and more money so that they can, obviously enjoy more and more and more. And then, till the time that they are enjoying, they feel this is the best. Right? You tell them, oh, this material world is full of problems. We should aspire to engage in the Lord's service and go back to Godhead where there is no misery. People will tell you, my life, there is no misery. I'm okay. I've got quite a few things. They will not maybe say it on your face, but that's what they are saying in their heart. And they are not wanting to make changes. Why? There is no sanity. There is no sanity at all. So we know from scriptures that is a dangerous path. This path is full of fear. And even if, we are not wanting to cheat, other people will cheat us. There is a propensity to cheat. Even us, after following the process of bhakti in some form or the other, depending on the seriousness the devotee has, the propensity to cheat does not go away, is it not? Prabhupada says that if somebody understands or knows that nobody is watching me, there are no CCTV cameras, I'm here and I've got access to a lot of resources, money, anything. And if I take something away which is not lawfully mine, I can get away with it. This thought does come to mind, should I or shouldn't I? It will come to everybody's mind. So that whole propensity to cheat is there. And to engage in some form of mischief, to engage in sinful activities, it's not too bad, it's not too bad a sinful activity. It's a little bit sinful, but it's okay. Like sometimes people say, in college, I'm sure everybody's gone through that whole process or that system where we interact with somebody who's maybe smoking, and they say, and then they say, oh, do you want to smoke? And we say, no, I don't smoke. We come from we don't say that, but we come from a good family. What will my parents say? And we know it's not a good thing. So then they'll say, you can have one, just taste one. Have you tasted? Say, no. If you don't taste, how will you know? You should taste. Come on, take. And he said, no, it's not good for us. He said, Are Baba, if you have one, you're not going to die. Just have. Means what? They acknowledge that it's not good, but they just say, you must taste everything. Even if it's not good, you must taste. And by the way, it's not that bad that as soon as you taste, you're going to die. So there's no harm. Try it. Now, if we don't have the clarity of our understanding, and if we don't have the conviction that, yes, this is bad, I'm definitely not touching it, come what may. If we don't have that knowledge, if we don't have that understanding, then anybody will get swayed. And people out there, the world out there is there to sway us. It's Krishna's inferior energy. We should not forget. So, in spite of knowing, sometimes we get dragged in, into this whole network. And of course, we understand from a few other things how in this material world, people are not only having propensity to cheat and engage in sinful activities, they are also envious of each other, right? Envious of each other, envious of each other's wealth. Even in a sacred institution of marriage, which is now no longer becoming a sacred institution, it is more of convenience. And previous speakers have discussed how divorce is the norm, just based on satisfying senses, based on good looks. People sometimes they call a fling, and in a few days they get married only to have legal sex, and then once that desire is fulfilled, the divorce is filed, in a few months' time. Why? Why is the divorce filed? Because he doesn't get any satisfaction from this partner, and so he wants to divorce so he can search out another partner legally and try to fulfill more desires. So this is going on in the name of civilization and forward thinking. Actually, it is absolutely abominable. And even at the cost of bodily inconvenience, people want to engage in sense gratification. Now, after going through all of this, sometimes when people are getting things as per their expectation and they're in principle generally okay and happy, they will not usually take to this path. They will not inquire about the higher purpose of life. Why? Because their needs, their purpose is being met. Why should somebody inquire, why am I here? Why should I come here? Why have I come here? What is the goal of my life? Where do I need to go? People are not interested. They're not interested at all. But sometimes when people go through problems and they are not able to solve it on their own, and people who are surrounding them, their friends, their relatives, they are not able to solve their problems, right? Some very life threatening disease, or some condition, or some financial problems, or some untimely deaths in the family. When these things happen, these, we call them real emergencies in somebody's life, that's when, and not all, that's when a lot of people then start questioning that, what am I doing? What's happening? There is nothing stable in this material world. There is never stable, nothing stable in my life. Things keep happening. Why is it happening? What can I do? So these questions are good. But what happens is that sometimes when there is these inquiries, they start looking for guidance. But again, because we talked about everybody in this world is having that cheating propensity, even sometimes, in fact, most of the times, so-called spiritualists who become godmen, should we say, they start having, because they know, they have some knowledge, they pick from here and there and they make their own philosophy, and they're able to convince and attract quite a few followers. They become big godmen, people who are sought after. And when some of the people sorry, go through miseries, they unfortunately come across such people. And these people, they tell them the diluted version or the completely unscrupulous version of what they feel is good for this person, the spirituality. And this innocent person, because he has no idea, he's likely to be cheated, and he gets cheated. And when gets cheated, his faith in spiritual matters also diminishes. So sometimes we see some people who come, they're inquisitive, they come to the temple or they ask about Bhagavad Gita, and we tell them about what we do, why we do. They're like, oh, it's all the same. I went there and they talk about the same thing. You went there, and you guys also talk about the same thing. For them, it's the same. And they don't have much faith in any of this process. Why? They have suffered perhaps in the past. So sometimes it's not about what people just say. It's also good for us to inquire what they have gone through in their life to give them a much better perspective of this process. It's very, very important. Another thing we have to understand is people who are overly attached to sense gratification, that's the goal of their life, they will never take to the path of understanding who the Lord is, the goal of life, and the process of bhakti. In chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita, there's that verse, Bhogaishwarya prasaptanam, taya paharita chetasam, and vivasayatmika buddhi samadhauna vidhiyate. So what is that? Bhoga Aishwarya, that material enjoyment for those who are attached to such things. What happens? The determination, Vivasayatmika buddhi, the determination to engage in devotional service will never manifest, or will take a long time to manifest. Why? Because they're too attached. So what is the solution? We are all in this material world. Everybody is suffering. The difference is some people accept that they are suffering, accept that yes, compared to the happiness I experience, problems are more. Some people accept that. Some people think, yeah, it's okay, my life is full of problems, but tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be much better. So they only live in hope. And when they unfortunately come across some pseudo-spiritualists, their hopes of getting something higher also is smashed. Right? So what is important is, and here also there is Prabhupada mentions that, not in this, I think previous verse, that sometimes after having gone through pseudo-spiritualists, even if they come across a devotee because of their past bad experience, they do not see the difference between a genuine devotee, or they cannot see the difference between a genuine devotee and a pseudo devotee. So even if they come to a genuine devotee, and obviously the path of bhakti, as we know, is not a very easy process. It's simple, but it's not very easy. There are a lot more discipline required to follow. Just like when we try to acquire some good skills and knowledge, we need to have discipline. It's not that we just see something on YouTube and next day we become Pandit. It doesn't work like that. Disciplined practice is required. And similarly, for the path of bhakti also, there has to be discipline, there has to be some practice. But people are not willing to put that effort unless they see the value. So the point is, they have to see the value in what is being done, and they have to understand that what they have been doing so far is not giving them the result. Now, as I said before, only some people who accept, some people don't accept. That's the only difference. So people who don't accept and they will argue that what they're doing is the best, leave them alone. Of course, when we say leave them alone, don't reject, but they are only people to be invited to the temple to hear Harinam, give prasad. That's it. Nothing more. But people who accept that, yes, there's a problem and I want to find out ways to get out, for them, they are the perfect candidates to start associating with devotees, to start discussing scriptures and the process of bhakti with such people, and invite them to a Bhakti Vriksha or a Namhat program on a regular basis, so they can slowly start understanding the goal of the life of human existence. So at the end of the day, doesn't matter where we are, what we are doing, everybody has to get the association of a devotee. As Prabhupada says, sadhu sangha, sarvo shastre koy. Lava matra sadhu sangha, sarvo siddhi hoy. That this association is very important. And sometimes, unfortunately, even after taking to the path of bhakti, after becoming devotees, we still do not understand or we still do not value the association of devotees. I mean, very sorry to say, but it happens. So we take it for granted that, okay, it's okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. So we don't value that association. Now, what happens in the association, we all know that, but we need to be told on a regular basis that why association is so important. We are somehow or the other able to do some bhakti and make some progress because of the association. Prabhupada was very, very particular. Bhakti can only be practiced in the association of devotees. And what happens in that association? That association is very important because in that association, we can change our desires. We can change our desires from wanting to enjoy in this forest of material enjoyment to wanting to change that desire, and instead of just enjoying for our own sense gratification, can we now have some enjoyment by serving the devotees of the Lord? Right? See, for a person to say or to think that, okay, I'm engaging in my sense pleasures for my own sense gratification, I want to please the senses of Krishna. Now that's perfect, that's the best, that's the highest. But from satisfying my sense to satisfying the sense of Krishna is a very big jump. How can you satisfy the sense of Krishna, who we don't even know much, we don't know how to? What is the via media? From satisfying senses, our senses, to satisfying Krishna's senses. What is the via media? In between stage is to satisfy the senses of devotees. Now, why senses of devotees? Because a devotee will never want to satisfy his senses. He will engage other people to satisfy the senses of Krishna. So by satisfying the devotees, we are actually in the process of satisfying the senses of Krishna. And that's why associating with devotees is very important. And Prabhupada writes that a devotee, somehow or the other, by engaging other people, is doing the best welfare activity. The best, what is the last line he says? This is the best humanitarian work. Why? Because he's engaging somebody in fact, he's engaging somebody in the direct service of Krishna and giving him that experience of real happiness, of happiness that does not diminish, right? And it is not that he stops his own sense gratification completely, right? I mean, we are all here, yeah, hearing Bhagavatam, practicing Krishna consciousness. Now, I don't know, all of us still have some desires for sense gratification. The difference is, before we took to this process of bhakti, all we were doing throughout our daily life is trying to engage in different activities to satisfy our own senses. That's all we did, right? Our own senses, our family senses, that's all we did. That's all we knew, that's all we did. We got frustrated, sometimes we experienced happiness, and that was going on. Somehow or the other, because we came in association of devotees, what happened to us? Our desire for gratification did not stop. It is just that that devotee now told us to engage in certain activities which can give us better satisfaction and better happiness. And by following their instructions, when we engaged in those activities, all of us, we experienced something here, right? There was some happiness, there was some satisfaction that we experienced, which we did not experience when we were trying to satisfy our own senses. Yeah. That's why everybody is sticking to this process. Why would somebody chant 16 rounds for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? They are mad, of course. In one way, for outsiders, Krishna consciousness people are mad anyway. But the reality is, why is somebody so committed? Because he's experiencing some pleasure, some happiness, by engaging his senses in something higher, engaging the senses in something that does not diminish. And that's why when somebody takes on some service, he experiences that bliss, so he doesn't want to give it up. So even if he's not able to do temporarily, he will somehow or the other make some arrangements and still be engaged. So this is an ongoing process. Does it mean that when we engage in this process of bhakti, there will not be problems? Problems will keep coming. Will we not have personal sense gratificatory desires? They will keep coming. They will come. Definitely they will come. But they will be much lesser than what they used to be before. Is it not? We've all about experience that. So the more we associate with devotees, the more such pleasures to have personal sense gratification, they will reduce. So that's why that association is very important. And in association, what are we doing? Not just having chit-chatting and just having a good time. Of course, when we devotees meet, we chit-chat and have a good time, definitely. But it's not just that. There has to be some discussion on the glories of the Lord. There has to be some practical give and share. Guhyamakhyati prachati. It's very clearly mentioned in Nectar of Instruction what we should do in association. So if you're able to do it in association, then although we may still be in the forest of sense enjoyment, we will be directing our desires to where we should direct to get out of this forest of material enjoyment, although temporarily we may still have some inclination for sense enjoyment, which will eventually go away. So having faith in this process and having seen a much more senior and advanced devotees following the process and reducing their sense gratificatory desires will give us the motivation and inspiration to keep following this path very, very sincerely. So that's why Prabhupada emphasized on chanting. Every day reading Prabhupada's books is a must. It's almost as mandatory as chanting. And ideally doing some regular service. And all of them, if they can be done in association of devotees, where we can reveal our minds, reveal the problems, challenges we are going through, and still stay steady in our bhakti. At the end of the day, if we have really followed the process of bhakti, then this forest of material enjoyment will not allure us. We are still there. We still have some form of connection and attachment, but they will not be an allurement to us. The allurement would be to engage in better forms of bhakti. And when problems do come in our life, which they will keep coming, now taking up the path of devotional service, when problems come to us, how do we react will determine how far have we progressed in our spiritual journey. So when the problems come, what do we say? So it is said that when problems come, don't tell the problems how big the problem is. In fact, don't tell yourself how big the problem is. The problems are coming to our life. So don't tell yourself, oh my God, I've got such a big problem. It's a big, big problem. No. Tell the problem that has come in your life how big Krishna is, under whose shelter we are engaging in this process of bhakti, so that ultimately we can get out of this forest of material enjoyment. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much. Happy to open up for any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavad Pranam. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for the very nice class and explaining the goal of life at the end, because we are in the forest of material enjoyment. Although material enjoyment, but actually material suffering, in other words. But if we, as you have nicely pointed out, that ultimately, unless we have the final goal before us, it is quite likely we'll be lost here. in one way or the other. And the Maya is so strong that it is very difficult to get out of it, because most of the people are thinking that one way or the other, they will be able to solve their problem, which they will never be able to do. But to understand that they will never be able to do, that requires spiritual knowledge. And without which we cannot get out of it. Otherwise, we will be attracted always one way or the other. So in this way, you have very nicely pointed out that we have to take shelter of the devotees and the devotees of Krishna, in other words. And one of the things in my word that came to my mind is our spiritual master. If we follow the instruction of our spiritual master properly, we will not lost sight of the problems we are doing. And for that, we have to associate with the devotees, because the instruction of the spiritual master is always to associate with devotees. From Prabhupada onwards, every one of his disciples has stressed the importance of remaining with the devotees, and that will ensure that we don't get distracted. And because by remaining with the devotees, as you have very nicely pointed out, we do not see the Lord, but by doing service to the devotees, we serve the Lord. And in fact, even in the very early morning the Mangalarti we do, there is a line also, Yuktasya Bhaktangsha Niyunjadapi. He also engages us in our devotional service. So if we remain engaged in our devotional service through the devotees, who has got better knowledge to guide us often, if we remain in touch with them, we will not be distracted. Because ultimately we have to remember the Lord at the final moment of leaving this body. And we should not forget that that is the ultimate things of life. And just one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam came to my mind. And I think I can say that one. It is in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, verse number 6. Etavan shankho yogabhyam sadharmo purinishthaya janmalavo para pungsham ante narayana smriti. That means, by the highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, that is Shankho, who does that, who discriminates between matter and spirit, and also practice of Varnashrama Dharma, occupational, by discharging our duties according to our Varnashrama Dharma. But ultimately, the end of life or the success of life depends on if we can remember the Lord at the time of leaving our body. So we should not forget that if we remain in association with devotees. And that is what you have nicely narrated. So thank you once again for your nice class. And I think this is the best thing to understand, a takeaway point from that we should not forget the Lord ultimately. That is that will not distract us. Only that will ensure when we remain in association with devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Nice summary as always.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thanks, Prabhuji.
Thank you for the nice class, as usual. You mentioned about this, some devotees, not devotees, but initial bhaktas who come to a movement. They come, then they leave, but they may be persuaded by some pseudo swamis. And is it because they have some previous bad karma, or because they don't have the security to join Hare Krishna, that they go away? Because there's so much on the internet about these pseudo swamis, very cultured, very well spoken, and some might be swayed, but they don't have much substance. So maybe you might like to throw some light to why people trying to get swayed by these people. What is the beggar? Why would they do that? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very, very good point. In fact, we were discussing it last week as well. Is as when we take to this process of Bhakti, Prabhu, this been, I'm sure you've experienced this as well, is we know when we start reading, when we start having a better understanding and following the process, that this is the perfect path. And it's in parampara, it's bona fide, it's sure shot, it's a guaranteed success. We all know that. And, based on our sincerity, of course, and our level of purity, we also try and communicate that to others. Now, what we forget is, yes, it is the best, it is the perfect, and it is a sure shot way as long as we are sincere. But everybody in this material world or everybody we come across may not be ready for this path. It is not that because the process is perfect and because we are relaying this message and we are uh, inspiring people to take to Krishna consciousness, every 100% people will become Krishna conscious. Eventually they will, but not now, because some of them may not be interested. Some of them may not, even though we are giving them bona fide information and everything is correct based on scriptures, they are not ready. Again, why they are not ready? Various reasons. Somebody might be happy following some other spiritual path, which may not be bona fide. But are they happy? Because the reality is, if they're happy, you tell them 100 reasons why they should chant, they will not chant. Why? They're happy doing what they are doing. And they don't feel it is not bona fide. They feel it is okay. So why should they be disturbed? Okay, you keep doing whatever it is. But if they have an open mind and they want to discuss and interact with us, we, based on their propensity, engage them. So come to the temple, maybe help in some, washing or something. But they're not interested. Sometimes they are interested in that much only. That's fine. Sometimes even that they are not interested. That's okay as well. We can just pray for them. So everybody will not take to this process straight away. And sometimes, as devotees and enthusiastic preachers, we feel why that person is not coming. Are Baba, that person is not yet ready. Everybody has their own baggage. We also had some baggage. So they have some baggage. Just do what we can do to the best of our ability. We do, and leave the rest to Krishna. Krishna knows when he has to take up this process, and if he's happy in somewhere else, leave him alone. Don't kill yourself because you're not able to convert. So that is one aspect. Second is, Prabhu, this is more of a personal thing, is are we developing that level of purity by very strict sadhana ourselves? Because what is coming out of our mouth when we speak to people is our own understanding and consciousness. So if it is not purified enough, and through the process of strict sadhana, because we cannot purify our own selves, it's only when we connect with Krishna on a regular basis, he gives us that level of purification. The more we are purified, what we speak will be more in line and will appeal to the hearts of whoever is listening. So we have to focus on our own sadhana, make it better, make it better. Sometimes we become very complacent, but we need to make it better. And that again happens in the association of devotees. So we get a broader understanding and we classify people and say, well, these people need more, these people need little bit, and these people, just leave them alone. And then at least we'll become peaceful that we have done our best. Let Krishna do the rest.
Thank you for the explanation. Is it because sometimes they have, like I mentioned, the baggage they're carrying, don't have proper security to carry on? Because we have some cases, Bhakta has been there like 20 years, very favorable, one not taking up seriously.
Yes.
He's listened to some Maharaj coming to their place, but chalta hai, but not serious. So we are also not giving up on him, but
Correct.
that maybe their previous karma or their different organizations is blocking their progress.
Absolutely. And another thing I was reading, and we all know that, is one thing that blocks people from taking this process very seriously is aparadh. I mean, they may not be chanting and taking up the process, but still, this offenses is something, even for a person who's not committed to the process of Krishna consciousness, that becomes a very big roadblock. So if somebody has an envious or a offensive mentality, they may outwardly look very good and okay, but internally, if they have that mentality, it'll be very difficult for them to sincerely take up this process, even in this lifetime. And as you said, yes, we don't know previous lifetimes, what kind of baggage there is and where they are coming from. So it's just easy for us to classify them. I know what you're saying, Prabhu. We also know some family who has been donating big amounts of money every year for the last 20 years. They have Kartik programs in their house. Sometimes they have one-off program, Kirtan program, maybe once or twice a year. That's it. But when we call them to the temple for festivals or to our Namahat or a Bhakti Viksha program, they never come. In the last 20 years, they've never come. So we just have left it, and whenever we meet, we tell them about the programs, and sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. But they regularly donate. So what can you say, Prabhu? That is, Krishna maybe is engaging them in that way, and one fine day we live in hope that they will take it up more seriously.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your explanation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, any other points, comments? No? All good? Excellent. Okay, so we will conclude here. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo
पतितानां
पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
नमो वैष्णव वृंद की
जय।
जय प्रभुपाद की
जय। प्रभुपाद की जय। गौर
हरि हरि।